I found the most evil kids in history, like Sarah Davy. Sarah Davy was just 14 in 1998 when she and her 15-year-old friend Lisa Healy killed someone. They gained the trust of Lily Lilly, a 71-year-old pensioner, by befriending her. Once inside her home on West Street in Oldham, they unleashed a brutal assault. Shampoo was squirted into her eyes, she was slashed with a knife, and a gag was forced so tight that her dentures lodged in her throat, ultimately causing her death. They transported her body in a trash can and then dumped it in the Rochdale Canal. Following the murder, Davy and Healy used the victim's phone to make hundreds of calls and spent her pension money on snacks and sweets. Luckily, in 1999, they were arrested, and at the age of 14, Davy received an indeterminate life sentence, with her friend getting the same. She spent 14 years of her sentence at Askham Grange Women's Prison before being released on license in March. However, within months, she violated the terms of her release by testing positive for cocaine, resulting in her recall to custody. Over the next decade, she was released and recalled a total of 7 times, repeatedly breaching license conditions. Notably, in 2022, her 8th parole bid was denied after tests revealed opioids in her system. Most recently, following a lengthy parole hearing, she was released once more on March 23, 2024, this time under stringent conditions designed to manage potential risks to the public. The parole board emphasized that their decision was based on thorough review of her case history, current behavior, and expert testimony, with public safety as their top priority. Moving on to Colton Harris Moore. Colton Harris Moore, at only age 12, was first convicted for theft, and by 13, he had multiple convictions, including vandalism. After a break-in at his middle school in 2005, he served 3 years in juvenile facilities. In April 2008, he escaped that facility and disappeared into the woods, triggering a surge in burglaries and thefts across Island and San Juan counties. Over the next 2 years, Harris Moore evolved from a petty thief into an internationally recognized outlaw. He stole vehicles, boats, and small aircrafts, learning to fly by reading manuals and watching flight simulation videos. He left chalk barefoot footprints and the phrase, "See ya," at several crime scenes, reinforcing his growing legend. By the spring of 2010, authorities suspected him in more than 100 thefts. The fugitive's spree took a dark turn in the spring of 2010. He flew a Cessna 400 out of Bloomington, Indiana, heading toward the Bahamas, likely intending to avoid U.S. law enforcement. His flight ended near Sandy Point, is where the plane crashed. Bahamian authorities intercepted him during a dramatic boat chase. His fleeing vessel's engine was disabled by gunfire, and he briefly threatened self-harm before being arrested. He promptly pleaded guilty to illegal plane landing and unauthorized entry in Bahamian court, receiving a light sentence, a $300 fine and 3 months in jail, but was deported to the U.S. immediately. On July 14, 2010, he appeared before a U.S. federal magistrate in Miami and was transferred to SeaTac, Washington, pending charges there. On June 17, 2011, he pleaded guilty to federal charges including burglary, interstate transportation of stolen aircraft and vessels, weapons offenses, and fleeing authorities. In January 2012, federal authorities added a 6.5-year sentence to be served concurrently. Following his sentencing, he expressed remorse and said he intended to study for a degree in aeronautical engineering during incarceration. In September 2016, after serving 6 years, he was released on parole to a halfway house near Seattle. He took an office job in his defense attorney's law firm and was initially approved for flight school funds until his parole officer required the money to go to restitution for victims totaling about $129,000. This kid had a pretty crazy life, but this next kid is crazier cause he killed 4 people in the same day. Ethan Couch. Ethan Anthony Couch, a 16-year-old, on the night of June 15, 2013, stole 2 cases of beer from a Walmart, then drove his father's Ford F-350 at about 70 miles per hour, nearly twice the speed limit while drunk. He sped down a residential road in Burleson, Texas, and plowed into a group helping a stalled SUV, killing 4 people. Following the crash, law enforcement arrested a disoriented Couch, found passed out in a ditch. His blood alcohol concentration was a staggering 0.24%, triple the adult legal limit. By September 2013, Couch had been indicted on 4 counts of intoxication manslaughter and 2 of intoxication assault. The victims' families initiated 7 civil lawsuits against him, his parents, and his father's company. In December, Judge Gene Boyd sentenced him to 10 years of probation and placement in a long-term residential treatment facility without specifying how long he would remain there. care. In February 2014, Couch began treatment at North Texas State Hospital. But that wasn't the end of the chaos. Civil suits progressed. By May 2014, settlements were reached, including a $2 million settlement for paralyzed victim Sergio Molina. On December 2, 2015, Couch had appeared breaking his probation after a video on social media showing what appeared to be the 18-year-old Ethan at a beer pong party. He was officially listed as a fugitive after authorities couldn't locate him. With a $5,000 reward posted, a search by U.S. Marshals ensued. Couch and his mother Tanya were found in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Ironically tracked via a pizza delivery phone call, Tanya was promptly returned to the U.S. and charged with hindering apprehension. Ethan's deportation was initially delayed, but he ultimately returned on January 28, 2016. After transfer to adult court on April 13, 2016, Judge Wayne Salvant sentenced him to 720 days in jail for violating probation. He was released from that term in April 2018 under strict conditions: ankle monitor, later removed in March 2019, alcohol patch, curfew, drug tests, and an ignition interlock on his vehicle. This guy is crazy, and so is this kid, who did a shooting at an elementary school. Brenda Spencer, in January 1972, saw her parents divorced amid allegations of infidelity, leaving Brenda and her siblings in the custody of their father. They lived in poverty, often sleeping together on a living room mattress in a house filled with alcohol bottles. Brenda later alleged severe neglect and abuse by her father, including sexual exploitation, claims he denied. She was described by acquaintances as withdrawn and had a tense relationship with authority figures. By late 1978, Brenda was under juvenile probation after vandalizing her school. During that probation, a psychiatric evaluation recommended mental health hospitalization for her depression, but her father refused and instead weirdly bought her a semi-automatic rifle and ammunition for Christmas, an act Brenda later said was so she could end herself, which she didn't, but she did have different plans. On the morning of January 29, 1979, 15-year-old Brenda opened fire from the window of her home at Grover Cleveland Elementary School. She fired 36 rounds at students, staff, and responding officers during a roughly 20-minute assault. 2 adults were killed, Principal Burton Ragg and custodian Michael Sucher, and 9 others were injured, including 8 children and San Diego police officer Robert Robb. During the standoff, which lasted over 6 hours, she spoke to a reporter by phone and offered the infamous explanation, "I just don't like Mondays. This livens up the day." Police negotiations even include the promise of a Burger King meal to convince her to surrender. She did. Charged as an adult, Brenda pleaded guilty in 1980 to 2 counts of first-degree murder and assault with a deadly weapon. On April 4, 1980, one day after turning 18, she was sentenced to concurrent terms of 25 years to life. Over the decades, Brenda has been denied parole multiple times. She remains incarcerated, with her next parole hearing scheduled for 2028.